Well, my name is Jodi Minnis. I am a visual artist, a curator, and a writer. And I'm thrilled to be here with all of you for the NAGB's virtual summer camp. So today, I will be taking you through drawing from observation with graphite pencils. And we have Blake Fox, who's our education officer here, who's behind the camera. So if you hear someone else talking, then Blake and I are dialoguing. So to start, what I want everyone to do is to stretch. So what's important is understanding that drawing is an extension of your body. So you draw with your whole body, not just with your fingers and your wrist. So if wherever you are, if you are drawing with us right now, I want you to just get up and shake out your wrists back and forth, shake them side to side, shake them, shake your arms a little bit. Just get the blood flowing. Do your shoulders back just a little bit, and then forward a little bit. Head in a circle. I do this before I draw and paint every time. And being loose actually helps so you don't have stiff drawing.
For sure.
So now that we have our blood pumping a little bit, we have the blood rushing to our fingers, we're gonna dive in. So what I like to do before I start a piece is understand that we are working in different sections. So it's a process. So we need to warm up, we need to get acquainted with our subject matter, and then we need to really go in into the drawing. So today I will be drawing 3 coconuts as Blake just showed you. So what I want to start off doing is I want to get my lightest pencil, which is an HB pencil. And if you have, yeah, HB. So the HB pencil will be the lightest pencil that you have. Then you have 2B, 4B, 6B. We will be working with all of them today. So what I want to do is just hold my pencil at the edge of it, so we're not writing. We're gonna draw. So you hold it at the edge. I want to stand a bit ways from my.
You want to see?
My paper, and we're just gonna draw some circles. So just get that going.
Because she's using the wireless mic.
Oh, she using the.
Because they have our own, but everybody doesn't.
So just keep going, get that flow in. Just so you could feel how it is and just go along the edges, goes larger, then go smaller, and just let your hand lead the pencil. So the pencil shouldn't lead you, your hand should lead you. And you're just warming up, you're getting acquainted with what the pencil feels like on the paper, you're getting acquainted with your arm moving, you're really just focusing in on what you're doing. And this is just to help you to get in the zone of actually drawing and getting ready to start a piece. So you can go in with the lightest one, and then we could go in with our 2B, just to get a feel of what each pencil does. So as you can see, the HB is the lightest, and then you go in with your 2B, which is a little darker, and you just feel that out, feel how that moves. Keep that going. If you are left-handed, just keep going as well, it's the same process. Switch to your 4B, and if you are like me, and you're out of shape, your arm is probably hurting right now. So you go in with your 4B, and you just feel the paper. And then you go in with your 6B, which is your darkest pencil. And you really get in, and that should be the smoothest one.
Why is that one the smoothest?
Because of the lead is definitely softer. So you have 6B, you have 8B, and the higher you go, the softer the lead is, and the darker it is because of that. All right, so we can start now.
Feel free to comment to guys and ask questions.
Yeah.
And give us a thumbs up if sound is good.
And if it's
positioning, everything is cool.
Yeah, just let us know. So with that being said, I took you through the variety of pencils, and with every drawing, what you want to do is you're going to start with your lightest pencil first, and that's where you get more general shapes and you really feel out the contours of what you're drawing. And then as you progress, you go on to the darker ones. So the darker pencils are for more detailed stuff, depending on light and shadow and how that works. So what we're going to do now is we are going to use our HB pencil to really get an idea of placement, to get an idea of scale, and to get an idea of how the composition works. So I have 3 coconuts here. So we want to look at the general shape of the coconuts. They're ovals, they're not necessarily circles. You have some areas that are smoother than others. You have some areas that have a lot of texture, and that's gonna translate into visual texture. And we have some areas where it goes like rounded, and it's straight on some other sides. So we just want to pay attention to all of that. We want to pay attention to how the stems come out, how they protrude into space. We know where the sharpest points are, where the fast points are. So just really engage with your composition, no matter what it is. And drawing for me is 90% seeing and looking and 10% actually drawing. So we just want to always remember to keep our focus on our still life and keep our hand on the page. So what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start with a circle, a more oval shape, to kind of space in where our coconut is. So you have that big one there, and then you have that smaller one right on the side. And we're just trying to get an idea of where things are. We're not concerned about proportions right now. We're not concerned about too much about scale, but we're keeping that in the back of our mind. And we just really want to block it in, because we will definitely be changing it and defining it as we go. So the key to remember here is to work from general to specific. So give it time. We are not Picassos yet. So don't beat yourself up if it doesn't look exactly like the image right away. So just give me a second as we just take this back up. Yeah. And Blake is an angel. All right. Possibly get to trying to be smarter than the big book. All right. And we're back at it. There we go. So now that we have our general shapes there, we have 3 different coconuts to pinpoint the 3 that we have on our pedestal. So what we're gonna do now is we are going to use our HB pencil still and try to really map out the contours of the coconut. So the contour means the exterior line. So we are looking.
Imagine you trace your finger along the shape.
Right.
All of the contours.
So we are not interested in all of this texture that is happening right here on the surface of the coconut right now. Like Blake said, we're only looking for the exterior line. So we're going to try to follow those curves and lurves and bumps and really flesh out what our coconuts look like.
And keep in mind, so you can choose whatever object you want to draw. An apple is a good one to start with, just because it's simple enough, but still a little bit challenging as well. So fruits are a good thing to start with. What else do you think they could maybe use?
Yeah,
bottles,
yeah, and anything at your disposal right now.
It doesn't have to be the
Right. So first rule, general. Second rule, contour. So general shapes, contour lines. So we're going with the first one now. I'm holding my pencil a little bit tighter just so I could have more control, but you know, figure that out as what's more comfortable to you. And with this process, try to keep your eye on what you are drawing. So that's most important here. And if you can do this all in one go, that would be amazing, just to keep a continuity of the line. But because of the shape of my coconuts, it's kind of posing a task right now, but that's okay.
I think Jodi is also emphasizing the fact that you should really be looking at the objects instead of your papers, because a lot of the times we draw what we think we see instead of what we're actually looking at. So making sure that you always are looking at your subject.
Right.
Instead of looking at your paper, you're going to get a more accurate drawing.
There we go. And then I'm just gonna bring this up here, bring that around. And that's a little stem. It's okay if it looks wonky right now, because like I said, we are working general to specific. And the erasure is actually a best friend. So don't be afraid to erase things. Don't be afraid to start over. All of that.
Sometimes it goes over the edge of the page, that's fine too.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're just gonna focus on the coconuts right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna erase the general lines that I made. So the lighter lines, just gonna erase that. I know I pressed really hard on my contour lines, which, no, I'm a heavy-handed person. But if you can get those a little more lighter, I would recommend that, just so when you erase, it's easier to erase those. So now that we've cleaned that up a little bit, what we want to do now is we want to think about, we have an idea of where everything is, we must map it in. We have an idea of how each piece works on the picture plane, but we want to think about the relationship between each coconut. So if this coconut comes out to here, where does this coconut extend out to? And that's going to help with our proportions a lot. So we said general shape, contour lines, and now we're going to work. So you already have a base for your proportions here. You already figured out what scale you're working with. So all we're doing now is trying to tweak the scale to the correct proportions of what we have in front of us. Is that clear? I know y'all getting me. Good. So we're still gonna work with our HB pencil. If you have a skewer stick or something like really thin and straight, that could work. Right now, we're gonna just be using our pencil. I'm going to pick up another pencil just to help me with it. So with my right hand, what I'm gonna do, and this may be hard to translate through video, but trust me, it works. I'm going to use my pencil as a guide. So this is straight, I'm gonna turn it, just very mechanical to try to figure out my angles. That makes sense to everyone? So I'm closing one eye and I'm holding it up to the edge, little squint, holding it up to the edge of my coconuts just to see where the base of the coconuts meet one another. I think I have that idea. So I'm gonna lift my hand up, bring it down to where that base is supposed to be. And bam, bam, Uncle Sam, drawing that little line. And that's where it is. So what you can do is you could check it, so just do it again and be like, oh, I'm not confident in that first line. Gonna try it again, bring it up, bring it down. Oh, okay, similar.
So using the pencil as a guideline?
Using the pencil as a guideline, because our eyes deceive us all the time. Like, do not trust your eyes. So what you wanna do is you just wanna give yourself things that can help you to check it and to recheck it. And obviously all of us see differently. So just don't be alarmed if you feel, I don't want you to keep doubting yourself, but just use your guides and trust your instincts. So we're gonna bring this down a little more, clean that up, bring that up here, and then bring that around.
I just have a question for people who are drawing. I'm just curious what everyone's drawing. If anyone is drawing now, what objects are you drawing?
And we're just gonna go around each part of the coconuts just to make sure that we are working within the right angles. We're going along each contour to make sure our angles were correct. And the trick is to just be loose with it. Don't get too attached to your initial drawing because it is subject to change all the time. If you start out with a drawing and it ends up that same way, you are a very lucky person. It doesn't happen all the time, so don't beat yourself up if that's the case. So as you can see, right here, I had to cut that area of it. So with that being cut, so it's okay. I'm just gonna erase that, make that correction. That's okay if it drops. And come back around. So I think we're looking good here, guys. Drawing requires a lot of patience. So it's okay if I use a wrong pencil for that. So it's okay if it takes you a bit more time. And another thing that I want to also make mention of is when you draw and you're drawing from observation, try to remain in the same position, because if you rock back and forth, that also changes the way in which you're looking at whatever you're drawing.
Changes the perspective.
Right. So try to keep, if you're sitting down, try to keep up straight. If you're standing, try to keep your weight balanced, and all of that will help in how you perceive your drawing and give you an accurate depiction of what you're actually drawing. So you guys see how I've been drawing for such a long time and all my angles are still wonky. So it's okay if yours has to change. It's totally fine. So, and we're wrapping this up in a minute. What I like to do is I like to put all my angles in first and then clean it up. Some people like to clean as they go, and that's totally fine. It's all about you finding what works best for you.
So the angles are these sharp lines that we see here.
I just put my arm right in it. Yeah, so I have all of my angles now. I'm confident in them. So we're just gonna use that HB pencil. And like I said, the eraser is your best friend. I have an eraser that looks like a pen. If you don't have it, it's fine. A regular block eraser is fine. And what you're gonna do is just clean those up. And you see what I mean about not doing such harsh lines, because if you don't want that indentation for your final piece. So you want to just keep your lines as light as possible, and it's going to help when you have to clean it up. So if you have any questions about this, let us know. If there's a step that you think, or if there's something that you've learned while drawing that's helped you, feel free to share.
Yes, please share. And you can just share in the comments, like you can send a message kind of right here.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna round this edge out, because it's still round. But we're rounding this out.
It's round, but like these angles put in are because this isn't like a perfect oval.
Right.
It's more organic, but still round, of course, not like you drew them with a ruler.
Right. So we want to clean up those angled marks that we made as well. So like I said, it's just process. Yeah, it's a constant process of like cleaning, erasing, making decisions, questioning those decisions. And it'll be fine. Trust me, I've been drawing for quite some time, and I use this process no matter if I'm drawing people, if I'm drawing things. It's the transferable.
You have a preference? You prefer drawing people? You prefer drawing still life?
I prefer drawing people. Yeah, but not faces. I don't like drawing portraits. Portraits are hard. Okay, so now we have our contour line drawing down. Some people end at this step, which is fine. But for the purpose of our class today, we're going to move on. So now that we have the shape going on, now that we know exactly what we're working with, we have an idea of scale, proportion, we know generally what we're working with, it's time to get more distinction from it. So we're going to utilize volume. And volume is light and dark. We're looking at the shape. We're looking at how this subject matter fits into space. So we're going to look at our highlights, our shadows, our core shadows, and we're going to look at just a general value scale from light to dark on the piece. So with our coconuts right now, it's kind of, we don't have too much darks, we don't have too much bright whites, which is fine, but we could really pull some of those shadows out so that we could really get a sense of our coconut. So it could actually look like a coconut than there's 3 blobs on my paper right now. So what I'm noticing right away is there's a core shadow right here on the coconut, and there's also a cast shadow on the bottom due to the light. And one thing that I want to drive home is that these are not lines. So shadows aren't lines. It's a shading process that we have to use to create the value and to really figure out what the surface area looks like. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to use the side of my pencil and really go in with it, because it's not a thread. And if you are going to use a hatching technique, then you also have to make sure that your lines are closer together. But I feel like for the purpose of today, that's a lot of work. So some people stipple, which is just dots. Some people hatch, some people cross hatch, and cross hatching is just doing horizontal and vertical lines across to create light and shadow. And there's a few other shading techniques, but we're just gonna go in with a simple, I guess this is hatching too, kind of technique. So what I want to do is I want to just take the side of my pencil. We're still using HB. The HB pencil is your best friend, along with your eraser. No. So we're gonna pull that core shadow in. And we could always clean this up. We're gonna bring that up and around. We're gonna
using the side of the pencil
side.
Makes for a softer shadow instead of like these sharp lines.
Right.
If you were going directly.
So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna clean this line up, because there are actually no hard edges to any person, place, or thing that you will draw. So what happens whenever you see an edge, that means is that's the point where 2 places meet and a shadow is in that area. So if you could see here, this edge here, some people draw that as a line, but that's just a shadow. That's a very dark shadow that is pressed up against a light shadow, which is creating an illusion of a line. It's not a line. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to grab some of that reflective shadow in. Going to use the same technique. And the reason why I like to use my HB pencil a lot is because you could build up the darkness. So if you start off with a 6B pencil, you can't reduce it. So it's gonna like get muddy, and it's gonna just be a lot of work to try to get it lighter and to start light and then build up. So we're just gonna use that pencil. Gonna go in there.
This is the cast shadow that you're
This is the cast shadow at the bottom, just so we can really define that edge. I'm just gonna bring that out.
What do you think is the main difference between drawing still life and drawing people?
The main difference is that the still life doesn't move.
Yeah.
So you could control the environment a bit better
More
than,
variables.
yeah, definitely. So we're just gonna shade all of that in. And it's okay if it looks a little sporadic right now, it's fine. We just wanna get that surface area covered. Gonna bring that all the way to the edge, yeah. And what this shadow tends to do is it tends to ground the objects so they don't look like they're floating in space.
Because they're not fluid.
No. So I'm just gonna clean this edge along just so we can put those shadows in, so we could focus on shadows within the cast shadow and then shadows along the bottom of these coconuts. Let me know. I tend to speak softly, so if I'm going in and out, let me know.
Are we still good on sound? Say yes. In the comments.
So we've gotten the shadow, and I just want to build this up again. So you see the difference with me overlaying that, how it becomes darker? Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is there's a really beautiful darker shadow right underneath there. Right there. So we want to capture that right now. And this is where I'm going to change pencils. So you will always change pencils back and forth. You're always gonna have like 3 or 4 pencils in your hand. It's gonna be like 1, 2, and it's gonna get in there really crazy. So we're gonna do that right now. Taking it to the pencil and just along where that edge should be. Make sure that your eyes stay on the subject matter. Sorry. See now how that creates some depth? And then in order to bring that in some more, to really define the bottom of the coconuts, there's a shadow here where the 2 coconuts meet. We're really gonna bring that in just to create some more depth and to kind of distinguish what's in the foreground, what's in the midground, and what's in the background. So we're going to put that in there. And understand that pressure with your drawing also helps. So if you have a harder texture and then you just bring it lightly, that also creates a gradient. So think about the pressure that you're applying with your pencil as you draw. So it's not just like one constant dark mark. Allow yourself to create some variation in your strokes. So that's called line weight. Yeah, I'm just throwing these things out. If you are here on Wednesday, we will talk a bit more about it. Just really getting those shadows in, bringing them all down and around. And just be aware of the subtleties as well. I think that looks good. Bring that up. Bring that up. All right. Now you can see we have 3 distinct coconuts. Thank goodness. So what I'm going to do now that we have our cast shadow, we have variation in the shadow, I'm going to go into my coconuts now and really flesh this out. I'm just going to take a quick look at the time. Awesome, we have about half an hour left. So let's really pull out the meat now of the coconuts. So I'm going to go back into my HP pencil. I noticed within my favorite coconut, because I'm always talking about this one, the big one. You see this area right here? We really want to pull that out because what that does is that helps us to define the individuality of the coconut. Not all coconuts are alike, and that's just the truth. So what we want to do is we want to really pull out different points within the 3 of them to help distinguish them and to help define them, so that when someone else comes to look at the work, they can see the clear difference between the 3, they can see the different characteristics of them, And it'll just really give them more, you and them, an idea of all that you've done, all that you've seen, because it's about 90% looking, 10% drawing. So we're gonna put that in, still using the side of my pencil. That's a little shadow in there. Put that in there. And allow yourself to just really commit to the shape, but also don't be afraid to take some things away. Understand that the direction of line, so the way in which you, whether the line is up, the shading is up or it's down, also informs how we look at the work. So we're gonna put that in. Then we're gonna just join those two together. And I'm going in the opposite direction just to prove. I'm gonna bring this up. And then along this edge, we're just gonna make that a little darker. That looks good. Gonna pull this in. So we're constantly defining what we've done, cleaning it up, creating just like subtle moments, not being afraid to erase, not being afraid to put some things back. I want to go back in my H2 pencil and just lightly put that line back because we did that too dark in the beginning, and that area is not in shadow, so it's not dark at all. Put that back in, and then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna lightly put some more value in. So what we're doing is we're creating a subtle gradient from light to dark because the highlight is within this area, as you can see. The highlight is right on this nose here, so we're not trying to go too dark on that side. Gonna put that in there. Some people like to use a blending stump. I love a blending stump, but and this is a blending stump. But for the purpose of the video today, I'm not gonna use it. Maybe I will, we'll see. Gonna put that in there. We're gonna move over to this coconut in back. And that one is the furthest one in the back. So that one's really in shadow. So we're just really gonna clean this line up first. I have a really bad habit of drawing very scratchily. So I like to do scratches. If that's your cup of tea, that's fine. But we like consistent, smooth lines. It just makes the work look more cohesive. And you have less to erase. So we're just gonna go all over. We're gonna erase this really harsh line because we're gonna go in with our shading and really get that in. So you wanna take into consideration the surface area of the object that you're drawing when you shade as well, because obviously if there's more scratches or more texture on it, those areas will be darker. And the way in which you show that is through shading. So don't be afraid to show those. Like this coconut specifically, all of that will be significantly darker just because of the texture of it versus then on this coconut. I hope that that makes sense, but you have to, especially because we are working with the surface area and try to creating volume, we have to make sure that those differences are seen. So I'm actually going to use my 2B pencil for this one, and we're going to go in with that little nook there. Get that in there. Also think about the shadow shapes. That's something that I should have talked about earlier. So just think about the shadow shapes, and which is basically just the shape of your shadow, and how that works, how that informs the volume and the shape. So I'm just finding that really tight piece of the coconut and just like carving out that shape, following it along the surface of the coconut, because you don't want to do it in a way that's straight and then it flattens your drawing. Just want to plop that in. We have that difference in texture. And then what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go back into that HB and pull in those other shadows. So now we're actually looking at the shadow instead of the texture on the surface. And you just really wanna clock those in. And I think that we now have a good idea of the shape. We have a good marker of where the texture is. And you do the same thing for the stem. So don't forget about the totality of your piece, because those help to create visual information as well. They help to tell the audience what they're looking at. So just gonna lightly put those in, because we're still on a journey of defining what's in front of us. So this is a good place to be in right now. It's a point where we could subtract, where we could add, and can continuously like push and pull what we see. So I use the eraser like a drawing material, just as I use my pencils. So we're gonna try to tighten it up. So we did first, we worked with general shapes, then we did contour lines. From the contour lines, we then started to define the shadows and create volume. So we put in our cast shadows, we created our highlights, our core shadows, all of that. And then we started to do a little bit of surface texture within one of the coconuts. So we want to do that. So now we're in the process of just defining and trying to create like a very like succinct and clean image. So I hope y'all still with me. We're almost done, almost there. So we're gonna move on to incorporating our 4B and 6B pencils now. So what I want to use my 4B pencil for is this area in between all three of the coconuts right here, because that's really dark. Sorry. So we're gonna pull that in. And I'm gonna use more of a tighter grip with it and really make sure that I'm careful about what I'm doing, careful about the placement of this, because like I said, it's really easy to put down, but it's not that easy to take away. Think about where your darkest dark is, think about where your lightest light is, let that guide you. Make sure that you're constantly looking at what you're doing, so you're not drawing in autopilot. And try to blend it. Let's make sure that there is a clear gradient in between each area. So I just went in with a 4B, and to clean it up, I'm gonna go in with a 2B light and lightly just blend that in to what we already have there.
So what would you tell people if they didn't have all of these pencils and they just wanted to start out and they had like a regular HB pencil?
If you have a regular HB pencil, that's amazing. And you could also do all of the same things with this. It's just about the application of pressure. So if you want to use, if you just have an HB pencil, you could get really dark with it the more you apply the pressure. And then you lighten up with your pressure, the lighter it could be. So you could still get that gradation with just the HB pencil. Then I'm gonna go in my 6B just along the edges, just to clean that up, to create sort of separation between the coconuts. And in some cases, you don't have to use the 6B. The 6B is like the darkest of darks because our paper is so white. We have to build up some more. So just don't be afraid to build it up. Like I said, if you start light, you could always go back. I'm using my 2B now just to really darken this up. Think about the direction of your line. I feel like I said that before. Yeah, I think that looks good. Thinking about some of that surface texture, trying to pull that in. Yeah, almost there. And I'm just gonna take my eraser and clean up this edge. Sometimes you get a bit wild, and that's okay. That's why we have erasers. I think that's good. And then we're gonna go into with the 4B. Just really darken that up, clean that up, because this is in shadow. But also remember to compare shadows. So this shadow is not as dark as this one. So don't try to like match it. Just take each coconut as its own thing. It all works in unison, but just remember that you have to compare shadows. So this one is lighter, so I won't go as dark as this. I just keep comparing it, keep looking, and be like, I don't really think that like that. So I can just move it. I'm not gonna go as dark there. There are parts where I have to go a little darker and leave the rest lighter, and that's fine. Gonna pull that around, and that's okay. And the more time you put into it, the more okay. The more time you put into it, the more it's going to stand out, the more all of these things will be defined more. And I think once we're done, so I think these two coconuts look really well. I have one last thing that I want to impart, and then we are done. So just gonna clean that up a little bit on the edges. And then what I want to impart lastly with you all is always draw the base. Always draw the base.
In this case, it's this what the coconuts are sitting on.
Right. So I did a horrible job because what I should have done is when I was defining the coconuts, I should have defined the base as well. But I still have an opportunity to do that. So I'm just gonna go in. It doesn't have to be super detailed, but you also don't want your coconuts and their shadows to look like they're floating in space. So we're just gonna go in lightly. Just plop that in there. We're gonna clean up the lines. Clean that up. And of course, we want the focus to be on the coconuts, and that's fine. So we don't want to do too much. We don't want to go so crazy. If you want to go crazy, please be my guest. I would prefer that. Just gonna clean it up and just make sure that all of the lines that you erase the lines that aren't necessary to the end result of your piece. If all of these lines are necessary, then you have to defend that, and that's okay. But I just try to clean it up as much as possible. I'm just gonna put these little legs in because something is being very attentive right now, and that's okay. Put that in. I can see the little one in the back. And plop that in. And then this one right there. And there we have it. So hopefully if you are here on Wednesday, we're gonna be doing almost the same kind of process but with charcoal. So it's gonna be a little bit different. Just keep those steps in mind: general shape, contour line, volume, and then just refining and definitions. Thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of
Let's
course.
just take a final look at the drawing. And guys, please share with us what you are going to leave in. Either post to Facebook or Instagram, and tag us or hashtag NAGB242. And share your images with us. So thanks, Jodi. Thank you, Jodi.
It's been a pleasure. Thank
Bye.
you.
We'll see you
Yeah.
on Wednesday.
Wednesday. Yes.